It reminds me of older days, Soviet Cold War days, when we met with Soviet leaders, but we didn't check our values at the door, and we agreed to disagree about a lot of things. I think that's the approach that Biden needs to take tomorrow.
Former Ambassador Michael McFaul, familiar face at this network. He's been helping President Biden prepare for tomorrow's big meeting, as McFaul himself has met with Putin, as has Biden. As Politico reports, Biden plans to take a tough line with Putin while maybe even eliciting a concession or two from the Russian leader. Such benefits, his team has calculated, are well worth the incoming flack from Republicans that they're getting for agreeing to the meeting in the first place. Well, with us again tonight, another good friend, General Barry McCaffrey, decorated combat veteran of Vietnam, former battlefield commander in the Persian Gulf, former cabinet member, former member of the National Security Council. He retired as a four-star general in the U.S. Army. General, look at it this way. If Putin reported to a board of directors, he'd get straight up bonuses every year, because think of what their wish list would have been 6-7 years ago. Get involved in Brexit. Get involved in an American presidential election if you possibly can. Weaken the Atlantic alliance that has kept the peace for decades. If you possibly can, find an American president willing to criticize NATO. And if you're really lucky, get rid of some of those American troops in Germany, because they bother us. So think about that. A straight flush. And I am guessing your hope and your expectation is that era ends tomorrow.
Well, look, Brian, I've spent a lot of time dealing with the Russians in Moscow and elsewhere. First of all, I think without question, President Biden and his senior team were right to engage with the Russians and to meet Putin. There's no question we have to have an ongoing dialogue with Putin. Biden arrives to deal with Mr. Putin with the backing of the G7, the European Union, the 30 nations of NATO. He comes in as the head of state of the most powerful economic, military, and value-based state in the history of mankind. He is dealing with a guy whose economy is smaller than that of California, who's corrupt, who's an autocrat, who's ended democracy in Russia with enduring and growing opposition to him internally. And Putin heads a state that is hostile to American interests. But we've actually fought and killed a couple of hundred Russian mercenaries in Syria. They interfered with our election. They're using hackers, surrogate hackers, to attack our economic system. So I think Mr. Biden will do just fine to show up, engage him, and leave a marker on the table. But then we must take action, or this daring, clever kleptocrat Putin will not change his behavior.
It's such a vast return on investment, such a minimal investment on the part of the Russians. You and I could go through social media tonight and pick out the stories that have been helped along by the sites we know are backed by Russian interests. Anything that tears us apart, anything that casts our country in a bad light. And think about it. The segment before this, we're talking about the possibility of voter nullification in our already torn up country. That's a pretty significant return on investment, if you ask me.
Oh, sure. No question. Look, when you look at Russia as a military power, they're actually, from a strategic perspective, not much of a threat to either Western Europe nor the United States. I mean, Putin's got a lot of oil and nuclear weapons, and neither one of them is a particularly powerful tool at this time. Our strategic threat long term is China. So when we deal with Putin, again, he's batting way above his average. He doesn't have much going for him. But what he does have is daring and a lack of respect for the law. So, I look at this with almost amazement at how far he got with Trump. And by the way, Mr. Trump today put out a statement, a very insulting one, the great relationship he and Putin had in Helsinki, and for Joe Biden to not fall asleep at the summit. This is such a enduring question will be eventually the Russians will leak what they had to control Mr. Trump with his anti-American activities. Those days are over. Biden and his team are in charge. We don't need military operations against the Russians, but we do need to directly confront them on cyber hacking, interference with our election, Arctic operations, their mischief in the Middle East. Biden's got to follow through on this short conference with direct action against this threat.